Hi, my name is Drew and I'm going to be walking you through the Lance 1685 today. So come along with me, we'll go ahead and take a look. Right up front here, we are going to start talking about the tongue jack. This is a smart jack. This is a Lippert product. It has up or down operation like you would generally find on an electric tongue jack. Also has a light on the underside, which is going to be helpful if you're doing any coupling or uncoupling after dark. Gives you a point of reference if you're backing up to it in the dark as well. What makes it a smart jack though is it does have automatic hitch height memory recall as well as an auto retract feature. Now setting both of those features up is going to be outlined on this very large sticker here on the side. So if you have any questions on that, refer to that. Generally you're going to use those features at the place you are storing the unit where you're going to be loading and unloading it the most. Directly behind that, we have three 20-pound propane cylinders. They are full for you today. You have any two running at any given time. You have an automatic switchover propane regulator in between the two. So in theory, if you had both of these valves, on these service valves open on each tank, and you had this directionalized towards this tank, it's going to draw off of that tank draw off of that tank first until it's completely empty, and then it is going to automatically switch over here to this tank and start drawing off of that. Now if you do not like that feature or don't want that to happen, just go ahead and shut this service valve, still keep it directionalized. Once it uses this tank in its entirety, then you will have to manually switch it over to this tank here. Now this is all covered, this whole area is covered by the propane compartment here. This does just sit on these tracks here and then would buckle down in. To operate to access your service valves, it does have a nice door on the front. Now that does look like it may be keyed, but actually you can just use a coin or your thumbnail or something to rotate that and open it up. Coming around here to the side, you have electric stabilizer jacks on this particular unit. You will have a door just like this on the opposite side of the camper in the same location. The only difference of that panel in this is that this one is the only one with the power switch. So this is where you're going to want to start when you're lowering down those stabilizer jacks and turn on both sides here. With these guys here, of course, this is your driver side front, driver side rear jack. When you're extending them, you're going to want to come down. Once you make contact with the pavement, stop immediately. Same with the rear. Maybe a little hard for you to see when that makes contact, but you can hear it with the sound of the motor, so it will wind up on you and just stop as close to as soon as you can. Don't forget to turn the power switch off when you are done lowering down the other side. While we're talking about the stabilizer jacks, you do have a 3/4 inch drive nut on each jack here. In case you were to have a power loss situation, you could of course operate those manually independently. You also have a toy lock here. This is designed to secure any outdoor equipment, generator, anything like that. Speculating that Lance had the sole intention of having this as a generator compartment. That's why you have the straps here. You could then just pull that out, of course run it outside here and have it locked up and secured and don't have to worry about it walking off or anything like that. In this said compartment, you're not only going to find the straps to secure a generator or some other piece of equipment, but you also do have a lug nut wrench there. That is a 3/4 inch size, so that 3/4 inch is going to be a common thread throughout the camper. 3/4 inch is going to be how you operate the manual operation of the tongue jack up front. The stabilizer jack is going to be a 3/4 inch drive, and the lug nuts are going to be a 3/4 inch drive, as well as the gravity feed for your spare tire is going to be a 3/4 inch drive. So you'll have not only this lug wrench, but you'll have a secondary crank handle designed specifically for the spare tire or the manual operation of those jacks. Also, further back into this compartment, we do have your battery disconnect switch. You will want to go ahead and utilize that battery disconnect for periods of long-term storage. Is a little turnstile key. Easiest way to kind of familiarize yourself with that is if you can go ahead and remove the key, that would be disconnected or isolated. If the key is locked in, that is going to be connected. Again, you're going to want to utilize that battery disconnect switch for periods of long-term storage. What that's going to do is help keep any nominal drains off of the battery that from the day-to-day are no big deal, but if you compound them over many weeks in storage, they are going to start to wear and tear on that battery. All of the compartments are going to have magnetic hold opens, which is nice. If we go ahead and drop that compartment down, that's going to expose this one here, which is going to hold your batteries. Your battery bank is made up of 2 Group 24 deep cycle batteries. Other than utilizing that battery disconnect switch, these do carry a small amount of maintenance. 2 or 3 times a year, we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull these vent panels up, and we're going to refill with distilled water as necessary. So underneath these vent panels, there is a clear marked water level. It is just our goal to maintain that water level. Again, another secondary compartment here. This one's the kind of pass-through compartment. Although it does not pass all the way through, it's just a very long compartment. It is accessible not only from this door here, but from underneath the bed as well. So any of your gear that you do have packed in there towards the back, you could access from the inside. Only other thing really to speak of is you do have your slide out control board there. Generally not something that the general consumer would need to be concerned about. But that is going to be the location, and since it is kind of staring us right in the face, I'll point it out. We have a small storage compartment here. This is not a very deep compartment. It is kind of here on the outside. I generally will recommend my customers to maybe keep their septic components in there, things that won't fit in the bumper storage, like elbows for your septic hose, gloves, things like that. You can store in there, and that way you're not having to keep those somewhere else where you may have some other usable items. White handle here, that's going to be your blade X valve for your freshwater tank. This corresponds with a 2.5-inch PVC elbow on the back side of the tank. To dump that, it's just going to be a 6-inch pull towards you. It's going to purge the contents of your freshwater tank in a minute and a half or so. And again, that is going to be how you dump your freshwater holding tank. Coming up here, let's talk about slide out maintenance and really general overall structural maintenance of the unit. This runs a Schwintek system, so what that means is you have tracks top and bottom, left to right. It is very important that we do lubricate those tracks once every 90 days. So we're going to use a dry silicone lubricant on these tracks. And again, you have those left and right, top and bottom. How that's going to work is you go ahead and spray these tracks down, run that slide in and out a couple times to dissipate that, or to distribute that lubricant there, and you're good for the next 90 days. Also, on that same interval, you do want to go ahead and treat these or condition these seals here. Now you have not only this set of seals that runs 360 degrees around the slide, but you have a same set of seals on the inside. Once every 90 days, we're going to use a seal conditioner as well. Spray those down. Of course, follow the directions on the can. And again, they'll be good for the next 90 days. Now, also on that same 90-day maintenance schedule, you will want to inspect the unit's seals completely. So anywhere where 2 pieces come together, they are going to use some sort of sealant, whether that is a butyl tape, a 100% silicone product, or anything like that. You will want to maintain and catch it as soon as it degrades. So here on the body, you're either going to find butyl or 100% silicone. You can source that from any hardware store. Find the matching color and of course spot seal as necessary. On the roof, you're either going to see like a roof tape or a self-leveling lap sealant, Dicor product, something like that. Either way, generally you would probably find those at an RV dealer, so you may have to do a little extra work to find those. But again, once every 90 days, 360-degree inspection of the unit. Make sure those seals aren't degrading in any shape, and touch up as necessary. So if there is any water intrusion, we do want to catch that as soon as possible. Moving on, we have your tires down low. Tire pressure for this unit is going to be 65 psi. That is the max tire pressure rating. Not only stamped on the sidewall of the tire, but you do have a data sticker here that is going to let you know that that is the max tire pressure rating. That's exactly where we want to run trailer tires. So that gives you the highest flexibility in terms of weight rating, whether we're completely empty or completely full. That 65 psi is going to be a good number. Lug nuts have been torqued to 100 foot-pounds here in the shop. Every manufacturer recommends a retorque procedure. The first 10, 25, 50, and 100 miles of initial travel, we do need to check and make sure that those lug nuts are maintaining that 100 foot-pounds of torque. Manufacturer further recommends that at the start of each trip from there on after, we are going to retorque those down, make sure that they are nice and tight. Moving on, we have a large storage compartment here. I just recommend my customers to kind of use common sense with what they choose to store in there. It doesn't carry a weight rating as far as I know, but I want to make a habit of filling it up with rocks or bowling balls or anything extremely heavy. So just keep that in mind. First up here, we have your cable satellite inlet. These are designed for either a park cable service or an aftermarket satellite package. These would be the inlet of those services. The outlet is going to be at the TV or on the other side of the camper. These are just pass-through connections, again designed for a park cable service or an aftermarket satellite package. 30 amp, 110 volt power supply here. If we go ahead and take a look at this plug, you do have one L-shaped prong. It is only going to be accommodated one way. When we do go ahead and line it up, it should plug straight in. Once we do have it set in there fully, it'll be a slight turn to the right that locks it in. Then we do have a secondary collar here to screw down and lock it in further. Of course, going to be our recommendation as a dealership to go ahead and use surge protection anytime you are plugging into a 30 amp connection. Nothing wrong with using a 30 to 15 amp reducer if you want to plug the unit into your garage at home, pre-cool the refrigerator, things like that. Those are very popular options. Below that, we have your city water connection there. You're going to use this white hose connection anytime you are in the capacity of an RV park. Anytime you have access to full-time running water, you're going to go ahead and use that guy there. Pressure is very important when we are running off of city water. City water is, of course, pressurized directly from the line. More often than not, it is over-pressurized. You can run these units generally in a working water pressure of 40 to 75 psi. The water pressure regulator we're going to include with the unit is going to be in between 40 and 50 psi. If you need anything higher than that or prefer anything higher than that, feel free to upgrade to an adjustable pressure regulator or a high flow pressure regulator. As long as you're keeping that water pressure below 75 psi, you'll be good. Generally, I recommend my customers to hook any water pressure regulator onto the spigot side of the hose, and then of course your hose onto that by rotating this trailer bound connection here. This next one up is going to be your black tank flush. Now before we talk about that too much, let's hop down here and actually take a look at these dump valves that you do have here. So you have black for black water. Black water is going to be any solid body waste. Anything that comes from the toilet is going to be considered black water. Now gray water here is going to be liquid waste, and that's going to be anything that comes from the sink or the shower. Now both of these are in the closed position. One's just going to hang out a little further to help differentiate between the two valves. Black water should remain in the closed position anytime you're using the camper. Even if you are hooked up to full-time septic, that black water needs to be in the closed position. Reason being is we need to keep that solid body waste in as wet or flowing condition as we can. We're going to use the monitor panel on the inside, and again, only dump as necessary. So as that tank fills up, We are then going to relieve it down here. Now you have a bayonet fitting in between the two valves. You have prongs around the outside of the actual dump valve, and then the cap or your sewage hose has keyways. We're going to just put that in the halfway position, give it a quarter turn, and go ahead and lock that on. Popular option for people is when you're using the camper is they're going to, of course, be inspecting that monitor panel as that tank fills up. They're going to come out here and go ahead and pull that valve and dump that black water. And then they like to go ahead and rinse with the gray water. In the event that you like that or you think that's a good option, that works just fine. Just keep in mind that these two valves should never be opened at the same time. So if you are going to kind of do that motion, go ahead and dump your black water. Once you're fairly certain that you have expressed all that body waste, you can go ahead and shut the valve, and then we're going to go ahead and rinse with the gray. Again, that's a very popular option. Now back up here to the black tank flush. This corresponds with a jet inside the black water tank specifically designed to help blast off compounded toilet waste, body waste, things like that. Biggest limitation to this black tank flush is there is no check valve. There's nothing in place to keep that water in the tank if you were to overfill that tank. So you have to be careful with how much time you allow water to rush in this tank. Of course, you're going to get the best rinsing action if you keep this valve in the closed position, but then you are also opening yourself up to possibly overfilling that tank, which if you do overfill it, the path of least resistance is the rooftop septic vents. If left with indefinitely with water rushing in here, it is going to eventually come out the rooftop septic vents. If you think that you may forget, while doing this, go ahead and leave that valve open, but again, you are going to get that better rinsing action with the valve closed. I recommend my customers no more than 5 minutes with water rushing in here if you do choose to keep this valve in the closed position until you then ultimately come down here and pull that valve open. If you have somebody with you, they can go ahead and watch the monitor panel on the inside, watch as that black water tank fills up, let you know when it's time to empty it, and then go ahead and empty it here. Also on the underside, right in this location, we also have your low point drains. Manufacturer does recommend that anytime the unit is going to be in storage for more than 7 days, that we do go ahead and dump all the water from the system. Of course, number one is going to be the freshwater holding tank. We saw that dump valve further up on the body. Number two is going to be these low point drains. So these do just have some little nylon plugs in there to plug those. Generally they're hand tight. You can unscrew them by hand. Last part of that process is going to be draining the water heater separate. We'll talk more about that when we get to the water heater. Outside shower here, from a functionality standpoint, nothing too crazy. You have access to hot and cold water. The sprayer here does have a hard on-off on the head. What I have found is since that people do not consistently see water coming out of here, even when they do have the valves on, they can forget that they have these valves on. This, of course, retracts up into the cabinetry of the inside of the camper, and because of the design, the on-off is facing the door. What I've seen is people forget they have the water on here. They shut the door. It turns on that sprayer, and if not caught in time, it can actually flood into the camper. So just something to be aware of there. Coming around here to the backside of the unit, we have, of course, tail lights, marker lights, things like that. Also have your storage bumper here. So this is designed to accommodate a sewage hose or really any long storage that may be needed here. So this particular unit, we went ahead and installed a backup camera on it. Yours may or may not have that, but this one, that was an aftermarket install. We'll go ahead and make sure that is installed. The monitor panel is installed in your unit when you come pick it up. And then we have your 6-gallon capacity dual source Atwood Dometic water heater here. Now, Atwood recommends two very specific things. Number one is going to be anytime the unit's going to be in storage for more than 7 days, we do need to drain it, and once that unit's drained, the next time we use it, we do need to make sure that we specifically feed 6 gallons of water to the water heater before lighting it. Starting with how to drain it, we're of course going to give it ample time to cool down, 3 to 4 hours at the minimum. Once we are fairly certain of the temperature, we're going to depressurize it. Now you can either use the high pressure relief valve here, and you would just open that up, and of course be careful because it is under pressure. Or you can use any internal water fixture on the inside. We can just turn the hot side of that on. And again, as long as we have cut the flow of water to the unit, the inflow of water to the unit, it will then depressurize the water heater, and we will be safe to go ahead and drain it. So once it is depressurized, we're going to come down here with a 15/16 wrench, and we're going to go ahead and back that drain plug out. Once we do, then that 5 to 6 gallons of water that is left in the unit is going to rush out here. Now you may, somewhere along the line, be tempted to replace this nylon plug with a brass plug. That is not only going to void your warranty with Atwood Dometic, but it is also, they consider this a secondary safety feature. So if the pressure inside the unit would start to grow and this pressure relief valve were to fail, it's going to overcome those threads on that plug and kind of spit it out like a cork. So it is very important that it is a soft material to maintain that. Now on the flip side of that conversation, priming the water heater or feeding 6 gallons of water to it before you lighten it is of course going to be very simple. You're going to introduce water to the unit, so whether that's going to be drawing it up from the tank via the water pump or a city water connection, we need to have water flowing into the unit. And then again, we're just going to turn the hot side of the spigot on, the hot side of any internal water fixture on, and once, initially that flow is going to be very kind of airy, flowy, spitty, however you want to think about it. Reason being is, of course, that water is passing through here before you ever see it at the fixture. So once that flow normalizes at the fixture, that is a very good indicator that you do have 6 gallons of water here, and you can go ahead and fire it off or light it. Now again, this is a dual source water heater, runs on 110 volt electricity or propane gas with 12 volt ignition, or both. So if you're running this on both sources, you're looking at about 17 gallons per hour recharge rate. Standalone propane gas with 12 volt ignition is going to be 15 gallons per hour, and standalone electricity is going to be 11 gallons per hour. Switches to run this or choosing your sources, things like that, are all going to be on the inside. There is no pilot light this is a direct spark ignition appliance. Also, lastly, is going to be protecting this from mud daubers and flying insects. They are attracted to the smell of propane. They will most certainly nest in not only the water heater, really any of the propane appliances on the unit. We do want to further screen off, keep them from nesting inside. Ladder access. This Lance carries a full walk-on roof. You will be up there at the very least once every 90 days while you are doing your maintenance inspection up top. Kind of the usual suspects, as I like to call them. You have a standard RV style handrail. This is going to be lifted up and folded into the direction of your choosing. Some people like to fold it against the door. Others like to fold it against the body, whichever makes most sense for you. Step is of course going to be up and in to stow, and then out and fold down to use. You have a door hold open here. That's helpful to keep the door from blowing in the wind, especially if you want to go ahead and utilize that screen door. That's going to be helpful with that. Of course, you have this screen door option there. And then with the door held back, that does make that very usable. Moving on, of course, we have your power awning, your speakers, porch light, things like that. We're going to get to the operation of those switches on the inside. We'll talk about those further when we do get to the inside. Down here we have your outside TV area. You have this TV mount here. Now the train of thought is that you are going to buy a secondary unit for the TV, a secondary TV for the unit, and then you would attach this to the back of that TV and of course store it somewhere when it's not in use, but then when you want to use it, you're going to clip it here onto this TV mount. Now this mount here clips on the top first, and then you have a little button here. You'll push that button. It's going to allow you to overcome this ledge there on the bottom and make that usable. So that's going to be something like this, top first, and then we go ahead and push that in, and it locks on there nice and firm. Now if we come down here, we have your power sources. So whether that is a 110 volt TV, you have a couple 110 volt all-weather outlets there, or if it's a 12 volt TV, you have a cigarette lighter style receptacle there, as well as a couple USBs to charge any devices that you may have while out here utilizing the outside TV area. Next up is going to be your refrigerator here. Not only is this a large intrusion point for mud daubers and flying insects, so we'll want to go ahead and screen off the vent that is generally in place here. So we have this vent here, and we do just want to further screen off these openings here. Other than that, not really any maintenance that this unit carries here on the exterior. I recommend my customers to give it a visual inspection a couple times a year. Make sure your condensation hose is routed towards the outside of the grating, and that's just about it. Just make sure nothing's gotten in there, make sure nothing's nesting, anything like that. So we're going to go ahead and put your tabs down first. So the bottom goes on first, then you have these square holes. We go ahead and line those up, make sure everything's in place, and everything's going to fit just fine. And go ahead and kind of finesse that in. Give these a quarter turn to lock them on. Check and make sure that vent's not going to blow off when you go down the road, and you're good to go. We also have your propane burning furnace here. This is where it exhausts, so it is very important that we do not restrict that flow. Not something you're going to want to put a lawn chair up in front of. It does need to breathe, and it does blow very hot air when it is on. It's going to melt anything you put in front of it. But also, to sound like a broken record, we do need to put a bug screen over top of that to keep those mud daubers and flying insects from nesting. Beside that, we have your potable water fill. This is how we're going to fill that onboard water tank. We already saw how to drain this tank, but this is how you're going to fill it. We're going to stick a drinking water hose directly in there, fill it up till it overflows. Once we're full, we're going to cap it off, and then we do need to use that onboard water pump to draw that water up from the tank to the fixture and make it usable. So that's where that's located. There. Down low here, we have a secondary propane port. Now this ties into the propane system. This is a quick disconnect air hose style coupler. You'd slide the locking collar back, of course insert the male fitting. Once fully inserted, it's going to snap back and lock on, and then we do have a valve here to actually turn that flow of propane on. Now you can use this for any high flow propane appliance, whether that be a gas grill, propane fire pit, propane heater. Any of those will plug directly into this as long as you do have the corresponding fitting, and will be very usable in that capacity. Also, even lower, right beside that, we do have your spare tire gravity feed. That is, again, that 3/4 inch fitting that is common throughout the camper. You have the instructions here on the directions to raise or lower, and that is very much like a pickup truck. You'll go ahead and lower that down till it makes contact with the pavement. Go ahead and muscle it on out of there, and that will allow you to change the tire. Now, when you are changing the tires on any of these campers, you're going to put your jack directly on the axle as close to the tire as you can without it interfering in your work. You're going to go ahead and jack the unit up, change the tire, and then of course return the either the blown tire or whatever on the underside here. If you want to throw it in a compartment, that's up to you. But the important part of that is where you place the jack, and that is going to be directly on the axle as close to the tire as you can without it interfering in your work. Large storage compartment here. You have this, let's get some lights on in here. You have this pull-out drawer. Now this is fully removable. If you go to the beach or something, you get some sand in here, you can pull that out, rinse it out, let it dry, and then put it back in. To fully remove it, you do just need to remove this pin. It's on some wheels, it'll slide all the way out. When you have it loaded up with your gear, it is very important that you do lock that in. You do have a bar latch there that's going to keep any of your gear from shifting and kind of hitting on this cabinet door here. Also in that compartment, we have this foldable card table. This is a really nice feature. You know, a lot of people aren't really even aware of it until they take delivery of the unit, but it is some nice forethought from Lance to include that with your purchase. Also, we have that light fixture that I turned on. Now that is a tap light. You're going to push directly on the lens to turn that on and off. And then we also have this light switch beside that, and that's going to be for these two LEDs on either side of the tongue here. So that's going to correspond with that switch. It's going to help, again, further light any thing you're doing here after dark, whether it's turning on your service valves, switching propane tanks, things like that. Those lights are going to be very helpful for that. Also, last but not least, couple finishing things here. We have a solar plug here. Now all Lances come pre-wired for rooftop solar from the manufacturer. That's going to be an easy upgrade if you choose to do so. This particular port is designed for a aftermarket satellite, or excuse me, aftermarket solar panel, whether that be a folding briefcase style panel or really anything. As long as it has this corresponding Anderson style solar plug, it will be accommodated there. This is just a direct connection to the battery, and essentially that turns this into a plug and play system. So if we go ahead and plug that solar panel in there, we go ahead and pull that out into the direct sunlight, that plug is of course then going to be connected to the battery. Those portable panels, the charge controller is built directly into the panel. They're super super user friendly, and again, it's a very nice upgrade. Anything that kind of fits into that portable solar category is going to more or less be a battery tender. Also, and then this should look somewhat familiar, we did have a door on the other side just like this. This is going to be for the electric stabilizer jacks. Again, that same rule of thumb goes in effect, that once they make contact with the ground, stop immediately. Again, these are the front and the rear jack to the passenger side. So that just about covers it here on the outside. We're going to hop in and start going over the stuff on the inside. So right here on the inside of the door, we got a ton of stuff going on. On this side of the cabinet, we have first up your slide out room switch here. Now this runs the Schwintek system. What that means is you have two independently geared motors that are moving that slide in and out. It is very important that we come fully in and then go fully out. What you want to avoid is short burst, partial openings and closing, things like that. Reason being is those two independently geared motors can get off and actually bind the slide in its opening. So we're going to, in the direction of travel that we would like, we're going to hold that switch in. There's an electric brake on those motors. We're going to hold that switch till the slide stops on its own and then remove our hand from the switch. So fully in, fully out, very important that we do remember that. Then we have your main interior, exterior light switches here. We have the slide out mood switch here. That's just going to be some backlighting on that slide out. We have a courtesy light, which is just a common switch or a light that you can hit if you're coming into the unit at dark. That is common to you, so you can light your way. We have your awning light switch here. Now that's on a red lighted switch because when the awning is in, you actually can't see those awning lights. In case that were to get turned on accident, you do want to make sure that you turn it off when it's not in use. Your patio light is on a slightly different switch as well. That's on a three-way switch. So if we go one direction, you're going to have a bright white LED light. And then if we go the opposite direction, we're going to have like an amber colored, more user-friendly kind of bug light type thing, however you want to think about it. And then middle is going to be off. So just keep that in mind. Here, this is going to be your carefree one-touch awning control. So first things first is just like this sticker says, you have to make sure that this entry door is closed before running that awning out. It will get caught on the top of the door. It'll be a moment of panic for you if you do that. So avoid that, and just always make sure you close that door before running that awning in or out. From there, you're going to turn on the main functionality of that awning. Once that's on, it becomes a one-touch awning from there on. So you hit it in the direction of travel. If I go ahead and extend the awning here, you can see it. I don't want to run it out any further than that because we have the entry door open. So once I hit that, and as you saw, it kind of happened very quickly, I pushed it in the direction I wanted it to go, and then something presented itself. In this case, the door was open. So then I hit it again in the direction of travel, and that stopped the awning in its tracks there. Now from there, if I want to go ahead and bring it back in, I just hit it one time in the opposite direction, and it's going to go ahead and bring that back in. What you want to avoid is hitting the switch multiple times. If you get impatient or anything like that, it actually can throw the awning in a loop. It won't exactly know where it's at. It'll overextend or underextend, things like that. Now, this switch, once that awning is in that out position, when using the awning, go ahead and leave this switch in the on position. That's going to turn on your wind protection. So if a strong gust of wind comes unexpectedly, shakes that awning rail violently, it's going to automatically retract. Now, that is an awesome feature, very usable, very nice, but it's not something that I would necessarily bet my lunch on. Still going to want to follow those rules of thumb. Never leave that awning out unattended. Things like that. It is a very expensive awning, not something that you want to replace if that wind protection fails to work. So when not in use, go ahead and turn it off. When it's in or going down the road, that does need to be in the off position. We have your Jensen stereo unit here. This is going to be CD, DVD, AM, FM radio, Bluetooth. All of those features are going to be utilized right here on the unit. You have your mode button here that's going to take you through those modes that we just discussed. And then we have speakers or zones here. So very important that you know these zones and you kind of are aware of them. They each have their own separate volume control. So A is going to be the dinette area, I believe. And then B is going to be above the bed area. And then C is going to be your outside. Now C is really the most important one. You kind of always know the new campers in the campground because they'll be watching something here on the inside or listening to music here on the inside, and they're blasting it outside so everybody can hear. So just something to be aware of there. Other than that, I mean, very easy to kind of navigate around these settings. It does have its own service manual. If you do have any questions, of course, feel free to give us a call. You get your Bluetooth pairing button, things like that. I find most people can easily navigate around these controls. Behind my back here, love this large kind of coat closet, pantry, however you want to think about it. It is a very large storage compartment, and this whole area is very usable space, which is excellent. Now I'm going to kind of come down here, and this last one's not a compartment. It is actually your back of your water heater. Now we haven't talked very much about winterization, and we'll kind of give you bits and pieces of that as we move along through the camper. Number one is going to be following that procedure that we talked about on the outside of purging all the water from the system. Those three-point process, starting with the freshwater tank and ending with the water heater. Once you have purged all the water from the system, it is very important that we bypass the water heater before introducing that RV grade antifreeze. That's going to be done with this valve here. So we're just going to turn that into the up position. If you ever need clarification on that, they do give you this tag here to remind you of the directions of the valve. The reason being is not only is it a complete waste of antifreeze to pump it into the water heater, we would need effectively 6 gallons more of antifreeze, but also it's a closed water heater, not very easy to drain every crease and crevice of the inside of that tank, so not something that you want to again have to flush that antifreeze out. Also down in this location we have your smoke alarm, or excuse me, your fire extinguisher. This fire extinguisher is part of your safety equipment, of course. fire extinguisher, carbon monoxide, LP leak detector, and smoke alarm. We want to make sure we do test all 3 of those every single time we take the unit out. Now, testing this this fire extinguisher is going to be very easy. We have a green test tab. We go ahead and press that test tab down. If it goes ahead and springs back, that means we have life still left in the unit. If it were to stay depressed, it's time to pull that out and replace it. Coming here into the bathroom, we have not too terribly much to speak of. We, of course, have these lights. One's going to be for the main ceiling light. One's going to be for the vanity there. Medicine cabinet, of course, your fixtures here. Again, this is all kind of very standard stuff. We have some storage underneath here. This is the hose for your outside shower. So this is where it feeds in. A little hard to see, but you do have valves back there if you do want to turn off the inlet of water to that outside shower. If it's not something you're going to use, you can, of course, turn the water off to it. If it really is kind of the first place to freeze in cold weather. So in the event of cold weather, you may opt to turn those off. Shower head does have an on-off as well. That's going to help not only conserve your 6 gallons of water, hot water that you have there, and overall conserve water, but it allows you to kind of do a Navy or military style shower rinse off without having to change your mix here. Other than that, your shower curtain has a little magnet here on the side that swings around and holds tight there. Fan up top. Other than making sure it's closed when you go down the road and open when you want to use it, you have a little switch here that turns that on. That's a 12-volt motor there, so you can use that off-grid. Again, make sure we close that before going down the road. Porcelain toilet here. Get a little owner's manual there. It's going to be a pedal style flush, so a light press here that's going to fill up the bowl with water, a full press here to flush. Always want to keep some water into the bowl. That's going to help keep those bad smells down. RV grade single ply toilet paper, chemical treatments, things like that. If you have any questions on when or how to use those products, feel free to give our parts department a call. They'd be happy to educate you on that side of things. Just about covers the bathroom here, so not too terribly much. I'm going to school you on in there. Coming here to the outside, I guess the kitchen area, you have your JFI outlet here. That is a resettable plug. Just like in your bathroom at home, if that gets overloaded, it would need to be reset. You press the red button there to reset it. Sink. Again, not going to kind of really spend too much time on these. These are, very simple stuff. And if we turn the water pump on, that will give us some water here at the fixture. Hot's going to be back and out. Cold's going to be down and out. You have the pull down sprayer, the multiple spray modes, things like that. It's an excellent fixture, excellent sink. This large open sink is definitely preferable. And then down low here, and pardon me if I make a mistake, but I believe your water pump is down here. And I was wrong, so it's not down here. So we're going to find that later on here into the presentation. You'll have to excuse me, I am going off of memory here. But while I'm down here, we have your carbon monoxide LP leak detector. That is, again, part of your safety equipment. We're going to want to test that every time we take the unit out. It does have a test button on it. Again, functions very much like a smoke alarm. This, however, is wired into the 12-volt section of the camper, so there's no battery to change or anything like that. And again, we do want to make sure we test that every time we take the unit out. And again, while I'm down here, we'll go ahead and talk about your fuse panel breaker box. Everything you have here on the left side of that is going to be for a 12-volt appliance. Those are automotive blade style fuses. They are replaceable. Of course, not a bad idea to pick up a variety pack of fuses, keep them with the unit. You will inevitably need one at some point in time. And then we have your standard light switch style resettable 110 volt breakers there. Just like in your fuse panel box at home, those may need reset at some point in time. In terms of function, everything is labeled there on the door. So if you have any questions, consult the door. And then also again, while I'm down here, we are going to go over the process of lighting the oven. Now the burner has the stovetop has a sparker or igniter, which is really nice. Make things very simple here to light these burners. And it couldn't get much easier than that. Now your oven's going to be slightly more complicated than that and kind of antiquated, but we turn it to pilot here on the dial, and we hold that down like we're lighting any other pilot, whether that's a water heater or something of that nature. Propane is only flowing when this knob is pushed in. So we push that in, and then we're going to come down here, and while holding that, and this is always hard to pick up on camera, but if you look underneath this tray, you have two prongs here. And again, not sure if you can see that, but there's going to be two prongs in there, and we do just want to put our flame in between the two prongs while holding that pilot light on. Once we see a flame, we're going to hold that for a few more seconds, let that thermocoupler heat up, and then it's going to stay lit on its own accord. We can go ahead and turn this to the temperature that we are trying to set. And then this stovetop does have this awesome glass top. Now this is not a griddle. This is not a warmer. You should only close this once you have given these burners ample time to cool down. This is tempered glass. I have seen these crack when misused, so keep that in mind. Fan, lights, that should be very typical of what you have in the residential sector. We have a microwave, again, very similar to the microwave you have at your house. This is all, a direct crossover to what you're used to. Switches here, you got one for the sink light, that's just the light above the sink, and the soffit lights are the lights there above my head. Again, some kind of secondary lighting here that's going to make this space slightly more usable. We have your convenience center here. Courtesy panel goes by many different names, but this is going to be where you control or monitor a few things here on the unit. So first switch here, first toggle switch is going to be the water pump. Of course, the red light means it's on. That is, of course, in this instance, how we're using the unit. We have water in the freshwater holding tank. We're using that water pump to draw it up and make it usable. Next up is going to be water heater switches. Now, as I mentioned on the outside, you can use both sources at the same time. That's going to give you the highest recharge rate, or you can use those independently. Middle switch is going to be that gas. Now, you also have a DSI fault light indicator here. Now, what that is basically your indicator on whether or not that water heater has lit on gas. It will try and light 3 times. If it does not light by the end of that third try, it's going to stop trying, and it will illuminate this DSI fault light indicating to you that it has not lit. So if you come back 5 minutes later and that red light's on, a problem has incurred. Either your gas bottles up front are empty, you don't have them on, or oftentimes because your propane's at the front of the unit and your water heater's at the rear of the unit, sometimes the gas just hasn't ran through the line enough to reach the appliance. In any event, go ahead and of course make sure your bottles are on and you have gas. Turn this off, turn it back on. It's going to cycle another 3 times. Generally, as long as you've corrected the issue, it's going to light on the first try of the second cycle. And then we have your monitor panel here. This is going to give you a real-time readout of where your tanks sit. If we go ahead and we push the buttons here, you're going to see the lights illuminate to the level of full. So if we're testing your battery here, of course, that's going to read full. You have different voltage readings here, and that's going to allow you to check those. Black tank's empty, fresh water's 2/3 full, gray water's empty. There is a scale here to let you know, and of course, the more lights you see, the fuller you are. So coming around here to the dinette, now this does make a secondary sleeping area, and I'm not going to do that for you on camera, but what you have here is a pedestal style table. So you'll go ahead and you'll work this table loose from the pole here, and then the pole will separate from the flange here. So once you have everything separated, you're going to go ahead and you're going to set that tabletop on these 2 slats here. And then you're going to remove this rear cushion here, and we're going to then take these two back cushions and lay them over the table. And again, that makes that very usable, so very easy to do. You also have storage underneath that dinette. Now, these latches can be very kind of finicky, so when using them, I see people kind of get overexcited. They'll kind of unlock it and pull at the same time. That's what this button does, is the locking mechanism. They'll last a lot longer for you and be better shape for you if you actually physically unlock it first and then pull. So kind of separate those motions and it will do well for you there. Other functions up here into the dinette, you have a dimmer there, which is nice, or you also have that hard on and off switch on the actual fixture. You have these pull down style shades, projector style shades, I should say. So there's going to be a screen option. There's going to be your privacy option. Fold out windows here, or crank out windows. So you have a fold out little pivot point there. If you go ahead and fold that out, that will then allow you to rotate this guy here to crank that window out. And then the window beside that's going to be an emergency exit. Now, if you're particularly motivated enough and the door happens to be blocked, you can exit out this window. What you would do is, of course, loosen that out. That would allow that window to come full out like a doggy door. Of course, rip that screen out of the way and go ahead and take that flying leap, again, if you're particularly motivated enough. Smoke alarm here, again, as promised, runs on a 9-volt battery. It'll let you know when it needs to be changed, just like at home. So, and then we have your rooftop digital over-the-air antenna here. Couple things. Now, this is an always-up antenna. What I would be doing here would be directionalizing it to search out the best signal. You have a signal indicator here that the more lights you see, the better signal you have. So you're going to mess around with this until you get as many lights as possible. Then you're going to do a channel search on the TV. You have your attenuator here that's going to turn that signal strength up or down. Can't really think of a scenario where you would want less signal strength, but there you go, it is an option. And then you have an on-off switch here. Now, this on-off switch doesn't actually cut power to the antenna. It does just turn these signal lights off. Of course, in the middle of the night, you'd be sleeping here. I can't think of anybody that would not affect those bright LEDs. So you can turn those off. Now, this does get its power from the antenna booster, which when we cross over here and talk about the television, I may bring that back up. This actually gets its power from the antenna booster, which is located behind the TV, and we'll of course touch base on that again. Here, refrigerator. Both of these doors have the latches on the right side of them, right side of the handle. So you kind of touch those with your fingertips, and those are going to open there. Controls of the unit are going to be on the inside here. So that's going to be your eyebrow panel there. This is a two-way refrigerator, runs on propane or runs on 110 volt electricity. So you have your on-off switch here, and then you have your mode button, which is just going to switch in between the two modes. On auto, that's going to be your AC or your 110 volt power option. In auto, it's going to default to AC voltage. If it does not find AC voltage, it's going to automatically switch over to gas or try to light on gas. That's of course the most popular option, is going to be that auto side. Now, if you're off grid again or going down the road or something like that, you do need to switch that over to gas, and that is going to allow this to run when off grid or going down the road. Temperature control is going to be here. You have 3 settings there. Think of it as low, medium, high, things like that. If you're storing the refrigerator, the door does need to be cracked open. That's going to help keep those smells out. Keep it from mildewing, things like that there on the inside. Fan here above my bed, or above the bed. This is a power fan. Does have a remote. I absolutely love these fans. This is the brand name's fantastic fan, but it is an awesome fan. It works really well. Here on the actual remote, you have of course that on-off button here, and then you have your speed indicator here, so you can come up or down, and let's go ahead and turn this on. You'll have 10% increments there, and that will drop down. Now you can also set a thermostat as well. That is going to set that thermostat. It'll kick on and off throughout the night to maintain that temperature. And then you have up or down here that's going to open and close. It does have a rain sensor built in, so if it starts raining in the middle of the night, it's actually going to automatically shut down, which is a great feature, being that it is above the bed there. This does come with a mount, so you can go ahead and mount this wherever it's going to make most sense for you, and that will work. I guess before I pull out the TV, we can kind of talk about these bunk beds here. I'm not going to actually fold them down, but you have two bar latches on each side of this whole cabinet. If you go ahead and release each bar latch on each side, that will actually lay down. I believe this is like a 100-pound max capacity, something like that. It is of course designed for a small child. They do give you the mattress up there to make it usable, but you know, with the secondary sleeping options, I do not really hear of too many people using this, but it is, I guess, nice to have the option. TV, we'll talk about that, and then we're going to cross over here and talk about the air conditioner and thermostat, things like that. Now, TV, again, maybe hard to see on camera, but you have a little ribbon here. Now, that is going to you pull down on that ribbon to unlock the TV. Once we go ahead and unlock it, it can pivot out here, and we can watch it from the dinette or other parts in the camper. But if I can shine my light up there, we have all the way to the left there, we have a 15 amp outlet. If for some reason we want to switch this TV out to a 110 volt TV, we can do so. The next one up is going to be your HDMI cable, and HDMI ARC. Now that's what's communicating with the Jensen stereo that we covered right when we walked in the door. And then below that we have your satellite prong. That's just going to be the transition of the RG6 cable fittings we saw on the outside. And then we have a 12 volt plug next to that. This is a 12 volt TV, so you do have access to that off grid or running off of the battery. And then this guy here is going to be your antenna booster. So I've referenced that when we talked about the antenna, and this is what actually powers the antenna. So we have a little button here. We press that button, and there's a light, I believe, that corresponds with that. Faint to see, but it's a little green light. And that's what actually turns that antenna on. So if we don't want the antenna on, we need to turn this off. Also, if we're utilizing a part cable service, that's going to be the RG6 cable fitting that we saw right next to that satellite one. That light or that antenna booster does need to be off so that cable signal can bleed through that line and ultimately make its way to the TV. And then on the way in, we do just want to make sure that we hear that nice firm click. That means that that is locked in and ready for travel. Coming over to this wall, other than kind of these nice reading lights and the outlets here, charging station, things like that, most importantly, we have your thermostat. Now, this is a kind of a touch screen, touch button thermostat. These aren't physical buttons. You're not going to feel a click or anything like that. So you don't really need to push hard. You just need to put your fingertip on it. When looking at this display, once we turn it on, your first option is going to be fan speed. Your choices are low, high, and auto. And whether you are, you know, those are going to be your fan speeds. And we're talking about air conditioner fan speed here. So if you go to either low or high, that fan is going to run indefinitely, whether or not it has reached your set thermostat control here. So to kind of keep it, keep going, or keep it right with us, or turn it off when we want it to, we're going to keep it on auto. I'm going to confirm that selection by hitting that mode button again. That's going to take us into the air conditioner mode. Of course, I can adjust temperature with these up or down arrows here. It's displaying that we are in that auto fan speed and that we are trying to cool the unit with the AC. Now, if I hit that one more time, that's going to kick us into that furnace mode. Once it kind of catches up and realizes what I'm doing, it's going to power down that air conditioner. It's going to kick that blower motor on almost immediately. 16 seconds after that, it actually ignites. By that 30-second mark, it's producing noticeable heat. Now, because of the small space of these units, within the first 15 minutes of operating that furnace, it would not be uncommon for it to set off your smoke alarm. That is just kind of the inherent of the size of the camper and the sensitivity of the appliance and in the inefficiency of the furnace when it first ignites. That should dissipate again within the first 15 minutes of use. So just keep in mind that that may happen. If I hit it again, that's going to go ahead and turn it off. Doing a final look around the unit, I do want to make sure I kind of hit all the points there. We talked about this on the outside, but you do have this lift up. That's going to give you more storage on the underside, as well as let you access things in the compartment. We have your owner's manuals, remotes, TV remotes, things like that. Monitor panel for your backup camera. This is that crank handle I referenced throughout the presentation for your stabilizer jacks, your manual drive for your tongue jack, spare tire, things like that. But I think I pretty well covered it. If you do have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We can generally answer any of those concerns over the phone. Thank you very much. Have a good one.